Hi there, my name is Kelley Cody Grimm,
And I'm Max Grimm.
and we are Creative Actors Lab. What we want to do is just talk a little bit about how you can bring creativity into your everyday life. Hi, everybody, it's Kelley.
And Max.
And what we wanted to talk about today was pretty much the godmother of modern improv, which is Viola Spolin. She had such an amazing life and really influenced how I see and how I teach improv myself. So just a little bit on her. She was actually born November 7th, 1906. She passed on November 20th, 1994, so about 3 weeks after her birthday. And her son, Paul Sill, actually started Second City. And she was doing workshops for Second City once he got it started. But pretty much, from the time that she was a teenager, she knew that she wanted to be doing theater. One thing that I just read super recently was in the 30s, and she had Paul. And after the Depression, believe it or not, a lot of wealthy people who had all their wealth in the stock market lost everything in the stock market. So there were these mansions that were available. And so what I thought was really cool was she and these other divorced mothers, single moms, pulled all their money, went and bought these mansions. And basically they all came together and lived in this one huge place, kind of their own makeshift apartment. They also pulled their money. They had a cook. And then these women would just work different shifts, but they always knew that there was somebody there to take care of their kids. And I just thought that was like, wow, for the 1930s, that is so forward thinking. She was there, she was breaking ground. I was watching a short documentary. Her granddaughter actually does also teach improv now and teaches a lot of her methods. But what really has spoken to me about Viola Spolin is she always felt that anybody can act, anybody can learn improv, and obviously your level of nuance and expertise are going to be different once you get in there. But that's always been my feeling, is like I can get business people who just feel really, really uptight. You get them in there, you have them working some theater games, and all of a sudden, it's kind of like all those anxieties and things like that really start to fade away. Mm-hmm. So we're going to talk a little bit. I know I've used this in my classes. You've used some of her methods in your classes. In fact, there is an exercise on our website that I guide that's all about just kind of getting yourself within the character. And what I really loved about her was, it's like, let's look at two different ways that we could interpret this. And one was, you could be sitting and listening to this with your feet on the floor. Well, are your feet pushing down on the floor, or is the floor pushing towards you? And when you start to think about that different paradigm, if you've got like a pair of pants on, well, is your skin pressing up against the fabric, or is your fabric pressing up against the skin? And when you start to really think about that kind of sense memory, what is it that your character is feeling in the moment? It really is fascinating. So if you do want to go on our website under lessons, I do have that whole sense memory thing. But you were talking the other day about just some of her movement exercises.
Well, all right, let me say this. When I got serious about acting, when I was about 19 years old, and I was going to school for it, the first two people we got introduced to was Konstantin Stanislavski and Viola Spolin. Mm-hmm. And the way that the days usually went there is in the mornings, you would have some kind of either like a voice or a movement class, and then you would have an acting class where you're doing monologue and scene work. Then you go to lunch, and when you came back, that's when in the afternoon would be improv. Mm-hmm. And just the first half of the day was very structured. It was very regimented. It was very, the method. It was that sort of thing. And then in the afternoon, the parameters kind of came off, and it was improv. And I always thought that was such a good way to present this to people. I mean, if you're getting into acting, it's like you're really serious about it, you had to know the parameters, you had to know the rules. Then once you got that, you needed to know how to break them and how not to break them. And that's kind of the compartment that Viola Spolin actually filled in that way. It was just a very good balance. Um, and as far as the movement stuff went, voice and movement have always been a really big thing for me. I enjoy doing it. I enjoy practicing it. I enjoy teaching it. There was pretty much every improv class started out with space substance, and that's basically just everybody just sort of wanders around on stage, and and the teacher will call out, okay, now like you're walking through mud, or now like you're walking through a torrential rainstorm, or you're walking through clouds, or on the moon, or something, and it just and you just get these random things kind of called out, and there was no thinking about it, there was no analysis, there was no paralysis by analysis. There was, it was really trying to get away from the, should I do it this way or should I do it that way, or just do it. Just shut up and do it.
Stay in the moment.
Yeah, and that's it. And it was just, I always thought it was a very cool, way to present the yin and the yang of the art and the science and the craft of acting.
And the thing that I think is really cool, and you and I have used these exercises with adults and kids. And when you're doing the movement exercises with kids get it. Oh my gosh, they're just
kids
jumping.
Don't care. Don't care. Kids do not censor.
They don't have the filters, and kids do worry about judgment, but when you remove that and you're like, hey everybody, we're all going to do this, and we're all going to be moving on the stage at the same time. And you're not being like observed, you don't have the stage line and you're there and you're looking down at an audience, but everybody's moving together. It is amazing.
Machines.
How that works.
The machines exercise. The one about spaghetti. And it was the coolest thing. I was just kind of like, they're going to look at me like I'm just out of my mind, and this crazy man is insane. And it's like, okay, you guys are a pot of water. Now we're going to put you on the stove, and you're starting to get warm. Now you're starting to boil. And it's like, and these kids are just sitting there going, oh, I'm supposed to be boiling water now? Okay, blah, 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 blah. And then the group of kids who are the spaghetti, they start off all rigid and everything. And then they sort of hop over and they get into the boiling water. Then they get all loose and flowy and all this sort of thing. And they just went nuts on it. They were like, okay, now we are the marinara sauce. Now we are the meatballs. Now we're the Parmesan cheese. And I'm just sitting there going, wow, that took a direction I never thought it would. It was great.
And in regards to movement, I will say, a lot of times we like to start our classes with mirror exercises. And I really, like I was saying, I'd love to get with adults and doing in-person classes. We've been teaching summer camps and younger people, but I'd really like to get this, because what we do is, and this is again based on one of her exercises in here, is you have two people and they were a mirror. One person is A, one person is B. So you'll play slow music, and the whole idea is watch each other. Your job is to make the other person look good. And when you do that, all the ego just kind of goes away, because then it's collaboration. It's not competition. And even with all the theater games that she does here, the emphasis is on collaboration. It's not on competition. It should never be competition.
And I want to say something, and I'm some people are not going to, some people are not going to appreciate this, but I'm going to say it anyway.
Say it.
Theater games, or excuse me, theater sports.
Theater sports. There's a big difference.
Okay.
Yes.
Theater games are one. Theater sports is a competition, and you're divided up into teams, and the audience basically decides who's the better of every. And it's just, to me, it is one of the most counterproductive ways to work with actors. We had a teacher. A bazillion years ago, before we got married, we would go into this class, and his thing was really doing improv. We'd work monologues and scenes and do all that sort of thing, but his basis was improv like this. And his main rule was, my job is to make you look good and your job is to make me look good. That when you approach acting and your partners and everything, when you approach it that way, that is where you get the best results. We're going to show how everybody how cool and funny I am and how much you are not.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, that to me is just poisonous.
And it really, in my opinion, I have seen improv troupes do that and work with young improvisers. You set them in a very bad path,
Mm-hmm.
in my opinion,
The whole
because,
mindset.
yeah, because then the mindset becomes, I've got to outdo this other actor rather than
Mm-hmm.
we've got to cooperate and build a scene. And so, yeah, theater games, I mean, at one point when OTC Comedy Troupe, I mean, sometimes I was putting in 8 games in the first half, 8 games in the second half. We collaborated with the audience. We
Mm-hmm.
had fun. I would love to do an entire class for people that are hosting and knowing, because you will have people like, okay, can I get a location? Brothel. Can I get an occupation? Proctologist, gynecologist,
Can I get an
bathroom.
object? And
Can I get
let's don't go there.
Yeah, something that one would use to pleasure oneself. And you're kind of like, so you've got to learn how to coach your audience as well. A lot of things, if you do take that as a suggestion, a lot of things can happen in a bathroom that has nothing to do with number 1 or number 2. A father could be teaching his son how to shave. A mother could be telling her daughter the facts of life. A husband and a wife could be waiting for a pregnancy test. A lot of profound things can happen in a bathroom. And so if you as the player are moving your audience away, because there is just something about being able to yell out suggestions, and that's for beginning improvisers as well as audience members, they want to go pee-pee caca like 3-year-olds. So you've got to, just like a good parent, you've got to kind of gently move them away and go, you are way more creative than that. I just know you are. And you don't want to put them down, particularly in an audience, when you're going to go, oh, that's disgusting. Why, that person's going to shut down. The audience is going to shut down and go, okay, well, that's one idea. Do we have some other ideas? And sometimes people won't shut it out because I want to see the scene in the bathroom with the man and the woman. But then when you do something that's really intellectual and fun, or maybe it's a woman and there's a plumber trying to fix the toilet and her in-laws are coming over. So again, there's so many things that you can pull from rather than the obvious. And I'm always like, don't go for the obvious. Do something that really surprises your audience. But when we're doing mirror exercises and you have people standing and looking at each other in the eye, and that's something too. Also, we teach stage combat, and it's really important if you're throwing a punch that your partner knows, and you have your partner's eyes so they know when to do it. If they're getting too close, you need to be able to know to back off. But with mirror exercise, you're not even really necessarily touching them. You're just very slowly going. I like to put on classical music because that tempo keeps it slow and simple and specific. So what I do is I have A lead and then B leads, then A leads, B leads. And then at one point I'll say, nobody's leading. And let's see what happens. And what's so interesting is when people don't have the pressure of leading, they're really watching what each other is doing. And there is that true back and forth. We do another exercise called Dance Diamonds where we have 4 people on and one person's leading, and then I'll call and go pivot. And then the person will pivot who was on the side, then the person who was in back, you pivot, then they're in charge, and everybody is going. And if that exercise is done right, people look at it and go, oh my gosh, did you guys rehearse that? And it's like, no, you're making the other player look good. You may be able to do all these crazy dance moves, but if the people following you are not able to do that, it doesn't matter.
It's kind of like a metaphor for life about communication, and in improv and acting in general, you've got to really listen. You've got to take your attention and ultimately put it on what's going on around your character rather than, how I look, how I sound, all that stuff. That comes in the rehearsal process, that comes in the classroom, that comes in while you're creating your characters. But there just comes a point where it's like that needs to kind of be on autopilot. and you're paying attention to what's around you.
Mm-hmm.
This comes in particularly handy when someone blows a line, when somebody
Mm-hmm.
forgets what part of the play they're in. It happens all the time.
Squirrel.
And the other people, have to kind of not make the person who went up on the lines or forgot where they were in the play, not to make them look like a jerk. Improv gets you back online. It gets you back where you need to be. And honestly, I would say, forget about acting for a while. You take these exercises, put you in sort of like a certain frame of mind. And certain parts of your brain get turned on, and other parts of the brain kind of get turned down a bit. And that skill in life, even if you have no interest in acting,
Mm-hmm.
it's so valuable to be able to just think on the fly. To you get some piece of information, or you walk into some situation in your life or something, and just that ability to roll with whatever, no matter how weird it is, no matter how unexpected or whatever it is, that you have that ability to just roll with it, to just go with it. And that's just life skills.
Mm-hmm.
It's a great thing for actors to have. It's, I think, whether you, and I, to be honest, I personally am really more of a stage actor. I learning scripts and stuff like that was always more my thing. And being in an improv group like that was not. I mean, I had done it before, but it was never my focus. It was never
Mm-hmm.
really what I wanted to do. The fact that I did all the training, it made the stuff that I wanted to do that much better. I got there's this old saying, classical acting is like classical music. Improv is more like jazz. And basically, the old saying is classical musicians have a hard time playing jazz, but jazz musicians have a much easier time playing classical.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the same. It's the same thing with improv. I mean, you could take somebody who's just very regimented, and it's everything is Stanislavski um, and Shakespeare
I
and
have
even
to say it
and,
right down to
you
the
know
semicolon,
it's
and I
and
can't
all that,
vary. Yeah.
and you put them in an improv troupe. I've seen some of these people really struggle, whereas you take an improv trained person, stick them into a Shakespeare play or a Chekhov play or something like something so particular,
Mm-hmm.
they're not going to have it perfect on the first try. But
Mm-hmm.
there's just a fluidity
Mm-hmm.
to it, and that's one thing I think that improv does kind of teach and nurture, is just this kind of this just like flow state where whatever it is you're doing, but whatever lands in front of you, you roll with it, you take it, you
Mm-hmm.
accept it, you don't judge it, and you do something creative with it. You do something funny or profound or done in such a way that it's like people wouldn't think to react or respond in that way, and it's like, oh, eureka,
Mm-hmm.
and they get the forehead slapping moment, and the light head goes out, and it's that sort of thing, that, in my opinion, I just think that improv in general, just the practice in that helps you so much with.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll say also, and I've told this story, I think, in every class every group of people we've ever taught. I was talking with somebody about Beethoven, and I'm a huge classical music nerd. But I remember getting into this discussion with a guy about why was Beethoven a genius, and he said it's because he struck a balance between form and passion.
Mm-hmm.
And his music it's got a very particular structure to it. There's particular, like, musical, mathematical structure to Beethoven's music, but within the structure, there's all this room to do crazy stuff that you wouldn't think to do, and it's sort of this match, or it's this very beautiful, perfect storm of structure and fluidity,
Mm-hmm.
and one is not overriding the other. And that's just, I just, in my opinion, I've seen improvisation just do that so many times. And in directing, there always comes a point when I knew everybody didn't have their lines down. I knew they weren't memorized, and that's fine. It's like, put your scripts down and just tell the story. I don't care if you use the lines, or you can use the lines, you can not use the lines, whatever, but just do the scene, tell the story. And some actors go, okay, and others, it's just this deer in the headlights look of abject panic. And it's like, you want me to do what?
But you notice when you take that stigma off, they actually remember about 90 to 95% because you're not saying you've got to get it exactly. And they get the lines because you've taken that off of them. And I think something, too, that improv does teach you is to work as an ensemble.
Yeah.
I've been on TV and movie sets where you would see that one person that, you have first team and second team. First team's your actors, second team are your stand-ins. But I would see some members that were on first team that they just wanted to stay in character and go off and do their own thing. And I've said that before. It's one thing if you're doing that in a movie, but if it's a TV series and you're never kind of with your co-stars because you feel like you have to stay in this place and this character, and it comes time to start rewriting things if you don't have other actors going, oh my gosh, I love the downtime I have with them. And, during lunch we go and, play video games or, we just hang out and talk or whatever. But it does teach you to be in the moment. And then within a few seconds, you've got to jump into character because that's what you do as part of the game. You've got to jump into character. And there's not a lot of thinking. We do talk and we certainly have our script analysis videos and things like that. So your objective, your obstacle, all that. But with improv, all that just kind of comes in organically. And you don't have to think it through because you don't know what that other person's going to say. So you're not sitting there for like 5 minutes going, okay, in this scene, my objective, my obstacle, you don't know because it's being made up in the moment. And I think from an actor standpoint, that's what's so great. And I think, particularly with what I learned with Viola Spolin, is you give people that room to learn. And you're also not doing it from a point of judgment. You're not going to sit there and go, well, you're never going to make it in this business because you couldn't figure out how to do that. That is not her philosophy. Again, you're going to have people that can come in. Not everybody's going to be able to perform at a Brian Cox level. But if you have people getting up in front of people and feeling comfortable, and for people that are in business, anybody who's done a presentation with a PowerPoint projector, at some point it may go all the way through, it may take a massive dump. And then what do? So you need to know your story. In your back pocket, you've got to have, this is my story. I'm going to say it convincingly. I'm going to say it with passion. I'm going to be a good storyteller. I don't need those slides to reinforce what I'm saying. And at the end of the day, that's what people remember. They don't remember the statistics on the slide, because if you're depending on that too much, they're going to be like, well, why didn't you just email that to me? But if you've got that story that really brings them around, and, particularly because I do coach nonprofits, if you have that story, that success story of a client that came so far because of your services or regular businesses, if you have that story that really tugs at the heartstrings, that will get you way further than any PowerPoint slide or key point image or, Canva, whatever that you're working with, because it's coming from you. It's coming from your heart. And if you have that knowledge and that story, your stress level, if your, PowerPoint takes, again, a major dump, you're like, okay, you know what? Why don't we just try? I'm going to tell you some stories that I think are really important for you to know about why I'm here. Another fun one to get people to do is the interpreter, where you have one person speaking gibberish, and then you have to have that person. So they're from a fake country. So it could be Atlanta, Slavia. All right. And what language do they read it? Do they talk in Atlanta, Slavia? So, you've got this silly little gibberish going, but you have somebody interpreting that, and you can either go that, or you could go one step further and have somebody who's doing an interpretive dance through that. So it's very silly. It's very interactive. You're getting the audience to be a part of that. But, those are the exercises and things like that I like to use with our students that really gets people thinking, because when you tell people, look, anybody can do improv, anybody can act, it takes the judgment aspect out of us. The judgment is what stops us every time.
And again, I'll say something else, and I think I've said this to every single group of people. I truly, in my heart of hearts, believe anyone can act. Now, not everybody wants to act, and it's not everybody's thing, but I believe anyone can. And the reason I say that is because at one point or other, we have all been children. And basically, this whole acting thing, take away the auditioning, take away the getting cast and the rehearsal and the costume fitting and the all that stuff. At its core, this is make believe.
Mm-hmm.
This is playing pretend. Mm-hmm. We've all been kids, and there, as the years have gone by, maybe a whole lot of other stuff has got thrown on top of that. But that little kid is still in there who wants to come out and play.
Mm-hmm.
Improvisation, I think, reminds people of that little kid in there who just wants to come out and play. You know, it's. I mean, it can be so therapeutic. It can be so cathartic.
Mm-hmm.
Just to have that spirit of play, of make believe. I don't think anyone has lost it, even, you know, no matter what things may have happened in your life, whatever, you know, traumas and whatever may have happened. I really believe that little kid is still in there. And so much healing can come out of just playing and letting that little kid out. I remember, oh God, this was forever ago, but I remember seeing this group. It was called the Los Angeles Poverty Department. And basically it was a bunch of improvers who went into a homeless shelter. And they did improv with the people who would, you know, come into, they would come in, and it allowed these people to tell their stories as to how they wound up where they are, you know, and what happened before, where they want to go and what their dreams are. And I just thought that was just one of the most beautiful, you know, things I had ever seen done with acting. I just remember that, and you just like look at these people and go, you know, if were you to see them on the street,
you'd pass them by, not make eye contact. Yeah.
You may give them $1 or something like that and go, poor thing, and you know, pity them or look down on them or just try to blur out their existence and things like that. But it put them into a whole different. They were able to be viewed through a different lens. And there was so much
healing.
Yeah, there was so much
healing.
There was so much good going on there. But yeah, I mean, you know, I do believe anyone can act
and create. We do an exercise called the library. We're doing improv, and that one's a good one to do online because basically, and that's again something Viola Spolin would do, is she'd be side coaching. And so what I do is I have people take a book. There's a pretend shelf on the back. They're in a library or bookstore. They take down the book. I have them describe, what does the cover look like? Okay, and what is the title? And then I have them open it up, and I'm like, okay, I want you to read me the first sentence of the first paragraph. And a lot of times people are like, there's nothing here. I can't see it. And I'm like, yes, it is. So they will start, and all of a sudden it's like it's coming to them where they're physically looking down and seeing it, or all of a sudden the text is starting to scroll in their head. They'll start to say, you know, what the opening paragraph is, oh, okay, well, that's interesting with that particular character. Now let's go into the middle of the book. What's happening in the middle? And then
what's on page 57, paragraph 3? You know?
Exactly. And, you know, suddenly they'll start to come up with that. And then I'm like, okay, now we've got the beginning, we've got the middle. At the very end, what does your character learn? What does that last paragraph look like? And they'll give me that, and they'll finish. And I love like the spark that comes in there, like, and I'm like, now, was this an idea that you've had? Which is okay. Because sometimes people, they've had this idea, but they haven't articulated it to a group of people. So they're, again, afraid of the judgment.
They haven't written it down. They haven't done any of that.
Or they just thought of it. And either way is fine. I mean, both ways is legitimate. And they're like, oh my gosh. Oh, and I'm like, that's a good idea. If nothing else, just develop it for yourself. Kind of, it gets you out of the rabbit hole of all the bad news and social media and stuff like that, is create this for yourself. even if it's just for you. And then I usually give them, a link to Drama Queen, which is a screenwriting software, or, go on Google Docs. Just go somewhere where you can start writing things down. Journal as that character. And you'll just see them like, going like, oh my God, my idea just got affirmed. And I wasn't told that it was a crappy idea. And I'm like, no, I don't want to short circuit you. Because Max and I as coaches, it's like, and we've said this before, is you can't build a solid foundation if you're going to put cracks in that foundation from the get-go. There's a lot of acting coaches that I think they are grinding their own angst, that they're not as far in their career as they'd like to be. Yeah. They're telling you this and this and this. No, you're not doing it the right way. Somehow, puff, I've just elevated myself by putting that person down. That is not how they work.
Yeah. Mahatma Gandhi said something about, it's like one of the sad parts of human nature is some people feel the need to, rather than make themselves bigger and better, they put other people around them down and belittle them so that by their own perception, they look bigger, although they've not done anything other than treat everybody around them like crap. But it's so, as you're saying, but, just sometimes you see these people and they're so tentative and reticent and unsure of themselves, and then they'll get this look on her face and like, did that come out on me?
Did I just do that? And they'll sit there and go, whoa, okay, I got it. I that was a little trippy. And I'm like, because you gave yourself permission to create.
Well, yeah,
and that energy just surges through your body, and there's that excitement.
What the instructor said to me of give yourself permission to know this, or give yourself permission to, see it's like, I know there's no book in your hand. I know it's mime. I know it's invisible. I know it's all pretend. I got that. That's fine. Give yourself permission to know. And something in that just clicked a switch in my brain. I went, oh, okay. I'm giving myself permission to know this, it's just to know this fact that doesn't actually exist.
I'm creating this out of thin air.
And I remember one time a director, an actor working through a scene, he was having a really hard time with it because he was like, well, if this was real life, this would happen and that would happen. And it's like, yeah, gotcha. I agree. In real life, yeah. But we're on stage and too many facts can screw you right up. The other thing I think about improv is that you really don't know what you're going to do next. You don't know what's going to get called out, or what scenario or what character you're going to play, or what scenario that character is going to be. You don't know any of that till usually about 3 seconds before you actually go to do it.
And we'll see that in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1,
and
go.
What happens is something else about improv is, when you're talking about the method and people staying in character for hours and days and weeks on end, which if that's your method, by all means,
Because you're not getting in front of anybody else's process.
But the thing about improv is it gives you the ability to turn your character on and off with just a lot more rapidity. When the lines become blurred between their character and themselves, when that parameter starts to become blurry, that's when you can start putting yourself into a lot of psychological hell and emotional hell. And it doesn't just stay with you. I promise you, what you do on stage or on camera, as in life, everything has consequences. You throw a rock into the water and the ripples, go, and it touches every part of the lake. Same thing with acting. Same thing with acting. It's what you do has consequences. It touches everybody, whether you intend it to or not. It's going to. And as I said, the thing about improv, it gives you the ability to know where that switch is to turn it on and turn it off.
Definitely.
And that's just psychologically and emotionally healthy.
Because
aside from it being a good acting technique,
life is unpredictable. So if you get used to that, as far as improv goes, and in improv on stage, you're like, I can handle anything that happens on stage. It's a good life lesson. Now, I know you love voice, and I just happened to, I'm like, oh, okay, let me open into this book. This book is actually I think the last printing was 1987. I'm just going to read out, like, for instance, the calling out exercise and then the stage whisper exercise. So for the calling out exercise, you need 2 or more players. You're aware who, what is agreed upon. Where should the setting be? And the players, out of necessity, call each other across a wide distance. So what's nice is there's an example of a cave is the where, the who is the guide, and tourists. What tourists are separated from the guides, where on a mountaintop. And so the point of concentration is keeping the vocal contacts at the long distances so that you're projecting out to the other people, which I think is really cool. I mean, that's just a good theater exercise.
Well, this right here, I remember doing these exercises in, I mean, maybe like the first or second acting class I ever had. These improvs in voice class, and the main thing was, you know, you're in some situation, you and your scene partner are in some situation where you are physically far apart, and you got to speak louder, you've got to be bigger, you've got to gesticulate, you know, you've got to project your voice. And then you turn around in the next thing, and I remember specifically it was the stage whisper. It was me and another guy got up there, and we're like 2 students taking a test, and I'm helping the kid cheat. So everything was being done in this very whispery
and that's
voice.
the next exercise.
And that was the thing, you know, and that was the sort of a thing that, you know, that we would do. And it's like, and just improv found its way into so many other, not just parts of acting, but just over the course of years since I was a young actor and went through this training, I've seen the same things, the same knowledge, the same way of reacting to things come into play on, you know, so many other experiences. I mean, you know, on job interviews or, you know, in work situations, just, you know.
And cold reads. We had a
reads.
Cold read last night of The Good Place pilot, and everybody they just went with it. And it was so cool. I mean, we did send out the script in advance, but they didn't know which parts I was going to assign. What is cool about the cooling out exercise, there's the point of concentration, evaluation, and then point of observation. So the point of concentration is keeping vocal contacts at a long distance. Evaluation, what is the vocal contact realistic within the situation? So if you're calling across the stage, is it just because you want to call across the stage? Or are you really trying to get that communication across realistically? And then just as a teacher, see that the students give a reality to the alleged distance through the use of their voices. So, I mean, that's all, you know, and again, it's very simple. It's just a few paragraphs. Now, as you were saying, a stage whisper, play this exercise with the same as calling out, only this time the actors agreed upon where in which they are forced to whisper to each other, such as in a schoolroom, like you said, a test, hiding from someone. Did they talk low or in a whisper? And do the actors share their stage whisper with the audience? And again, use this exercise during a workshop when whispering occurs and the actors cannot be heard. And then side coach, stage whisper, or get a little bit louder. But, you know, again, it's what's really cool about this book is you don't necessarily have to read it from beginning to end. I kind of just flipped open and went, oh, that's a good one. These are short exercises, but this has not gone out of print since 1963. So yeah, it's been around for a minute, but that's because it's really good. And then there's also the theater exercises for the lone actor, which is where we learned the, you know, rules of 10, what happened 10 months, 10 weeks, 10 minutes, 10 seconds, and then you leave, then what's happening, you know, 10 minutes, 10 days, and all that after. And in that book, she really does give you a lot of stuff so that if you don't, and that was a book I really recommended during COVID, is look, because you can still study your craft when you can't be face to face with people, or you're just on Zoom. But what is it that you as a lone actor can do for exercises and movements and things like that? You can still moonwalk by yourself. You could still do your movement exercises, but you know, I just think for actors, the more that we're able to pull all that together. And, you know, I'm just so glad that I was able, you know, to find Viola Spolin. And I mean, again, it's not like you have to look very hard because so many people use her, study her. You know, if anybody asks me acting wise, who is my biggest influence, it's Spolin. I wouldn't say it's Meisner or Stanislavski or Uta Hagen or Stella Adler. Those are all great. I have looked at them. I won't say I've done like a deep study of them, but I know of them. But out of all those, Viola Spolin has probably spoken to me the most professionally. So I highly recommend. We will put a link in to her website, also to Amazon, where you can purchase your own book. And yeah, just give yourself that time to go ahead and do that. Create for both the exercises for the lone actor as well as improvisation for the theater. It really will open up a lot of creative byways for you.
There you go.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for listening today. We
Yes,
had
indeed.
fun. Keep practicing, keep working, and we will see you next time.
Indeed, we will. Be well, my friends. Until next time.
We appreciate you guys tuning in, and keep in mind that you can catch us on our social media, Creative Actors Lab on Instagram and Facebook, and by the same name on YouTube. And for more on what we do, you can go to our website,
CreativeActorsLab.com, all one word. Thank you for listening. Stay curious, make art.org. Much love until next time.